I want to kick us off and welcome everybody to the Rocha Revolution here on Substack. I'm super honored this week to be joined by my brother Marcus. You have tuned in for the right place. For those of you trying to tune in from home who thought you was going to get a bunch of Democrats and you see two old boys with cowboy hats, I want to make sure you know this is still a Democratic podcast and you have not come on to some right-wing redneck show. We are proud Democrats. Marcus, it's good to see you, brother.
Likewise, Chuck. Always good to see you, my friend.
Tell me about your new Substack. Let's get started that way.
Yep. If I saw that this place was becoming the new home for the resistance. We're getting out of the Twitter sphere since Elon took over and did his thing. So I decided to hop over here and start having the conversation here. It looks like a much better platform where people are actually tuning in and engaging. So decided.
And the name of your new show?
It is called With All Due Respect.
Ooh, some of the ugliest things that have ever been said to me in my life started with all due respect.
Absolutely.
You're ignorant ass. Let me tell you what I really think about it. Marcus, for folks who don't know and folks who may not know who you are, who know me, and I'll do the same in return, tell folks how you got involved in the party and tell them, they may not know that you ran for Congress against Marjorie Taylor Greene. They may not know that you're a U.S. veteran. So kind of give the folks, how did you get involved in politics?
A little backstory on me, Army veteran. I spent a decade in combat zones, 6 years in Iraq, 4 years in Afghanistan, served this country for almost 30 years as a soldier, defense contractor, and government employee. My background is in intelligence and electronics warfare, logistics, and compliance. So I was always that what we call apolitical or non-political person. It was my job to always serve the American people, support and defend the Constitution. And that's what I did for almost 3 decades until I saw what happened on January 6th. It was, an eye-opener for me. As Chuck told you, I ran for Congress against Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of the worst of the worst on the Republican MAGA side of the House. And, when I saw what was going on with her, the things that she was saying in the district that I lived in, I just didn't appreciate it. I'd watched, that summer of, we'll call it discontent, people standing up, voicing their opinions. I decided to go on social media for the first time and start talking to people and, hearing what people were thinking, because I saw some dangerous rhetoric coming out of the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I knew we were headed to a bad place. So I decided, let me go out and start talking to people, even reached out to Marjorie Taylor Greene prior to January 6th and said, hey, you need to tone down some of this rhetoric. That ain't who we are in Northwest Georgia. If you're going to represent us, represent all of us. Some of us had different opinions from you. Crickets from her. January 6th happened. And I decided, what, I can't just sit back and do nothing. So I decided to run for Congress against Marjorie Taylor Greene in the wake of that, because I felt like we'd gotten to that dangerous place that I saw coming for, months and months, and maybe even a couple of years. I saw it heading there with the white hot rhetoric on coming out of the left and the conspiracy theories. We finally got there. And on January 7th, 2021, I resigned my post as a government official and decided to run for Congress against Marjorie Taylor Greene. So that was my introductory into the party. A guy who got fed up with all the bullshit and just jumped in feet first, blew up my entire career and said, it's time for me to do something. And I got involved.
Well, I think that's when me and you kind of discovered each other. I think I saw you on Twitter and saw you and made the connection. And I was like, well, look at here. Here's a black brother wearing a cowboy hat. Kind of sounds like me. My wife would say kind of looks like me. And then I was like, I want to make the connection. So we became friends. And at the time, I think a lot of you know that I've worked for Vote Vets for many years. And so
I look exactly like you.
And so working with Vote Vets and had worked with veteran candidates, I think it was actually, now that I think about it, it was John Soltz. Yep. My old buddy John, who was like, man, you got to meet this guy down in Georgia. Now, for all of you listening at home, Marcus lives down in Georgia, and I grew up in East Texas. If you get on Interstate 20, just keep driving. Our house is pretty close to being connected because I lived about 45 minutes the other side of Shreveport in deep East Texas in the Piney Woods. And so I wanted to ask Marcus to be on because of his story is so relevant to what a lot of people were feeling, not just through January 6th, not only if you were a veteran or not a veteran about, the way and the direction that this country is moving. Today, I want to get more in depth about some of the writings that Marcus has been doing and then some of the things that I've been talking about in my Substack and with some of the op-eds that I've been putting out, not only about the Texas redistricting, but where we are with other folks. I wanted to open people's eyes up a little bit and talk about my story, Marcus's story of not just two folks who sound like a lot of people in the South who wear cowboy hats every day. It's just a matter of fact, not making any kind of symbolism. It's just like I've had wore a cowboy hat since I was old enough to have one on because I ain't got no hair. And it keeps the heat in the winter and it keeps the sun off in the summer for any of you scoring at home. And so having this conversation about why there's not more folks in cowboy hats in the party, how we are deficient in the way that we go and try to recruit and talk to those people that come from rural areas of America, and what Democrats could be doing better to reach a number of groups. One is rural voters, two are men voters, and three are people of color out in the country or in the cities who we have had a lackluster effort with, and the numbers have moved dramatically away from us. And before we get into all that, Marcus, my first question to you is talking about, can you give us some background on this latest piece that I read that you were writing around some of the things the party had been getting wrong around folks of color?
Exactly. I mean, that's one of the things I've been. Let me start here. After the 2024 election, I was perplexed. I was a little bit shocked that not only did Donald Trump win the election, but he improved his numbers. And where did he improve his numbers? He improved his numbers with Latinos, non-black voters. I mean, he almost doubled his number with black men under 45. I thought that was crazy. So when you digging into it, where did the Democratic Party go wrong? My party. Where did we go wrong? How are we not reaching out to these people? And as I dug into it, I was looking at the numbers and looking at what we're talking about as Democrats. And I noticed that we completely missed the boat with these people. We're not talking about the things that these people are concerned about. We're more concerned about identity politics. We're more concerned about issues that people aren't really connecting with. And those are those kitchen table issues that people were really, really focusing on: the economy, immigration. And I mean, it's tough. It's tough. It was tough and painful as a Democrat to see that, we needed to face some hard truths, that we were leaving people out, that we had, as Democrats, taken black voters for granted. And we're not talking about the things that they're doing. We weren't connecting with them. I mean, we assumed that we had this huge coalition and alliance that were going to come out and just vote for Democrats because Donald Trump's bad. We all know that Donald Trump's bad. We all knew his record on the economy, but we were not addressing these issues. This goes back to, listening to what people were saying, even back with Obama. That coalition held up through Obama's presidency. It was there. We didn't get Hillary Clinton through office because she turned some people off, some men of color, people of color. That coalition that was strong. It came back to Biden. It wasn't there for Hillary, and then again, it wasn't there for Kamala, because as a party, you know, we weren't talking to people the way that you're supposed to talk to people. We weren't doing the things that I did in my campaign that moved a ruby red district 10 points to the left, Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. And by the way, they drew those parts of the district I won out in the next redistricting fight. We weren't talking to those people. We weren't getting out knocking at doors. As Kamala Harris said, we were being transactional. We only showed up a couple of weeks before an election and assumed people were going to give us their votes. We weren't talking about the things or listening to what people were actually saying. We were focused on things like identity politics, LGBTQ. And I know this sounds bad, but we weren't focused on the Black community, Latino men, and listening to what people were saying about things that mattered to them: crime in their cities, economics, those things. We got to sit down and have those tough conversations. We got to show up, first of all. We weren't showing up. We weren't listening and we weren't learning, and, you got to speak to people again. You got to speak to people's real life struggles, not just identity politics. That's one of the things that I saw as I researched this.
I was in I was in New Orleans yesterday at the Netroots Nation, where I was honored to speak on a panel with the wonderful Terrence Woodbury of Hit Strategies. He is the premier pollster out there. He is an African American brother. They do a ton of work. And he showed the movement of that boat, Latino men, black men, also Latino women. Like there was this shift, and we talked and went in depth. Roger Lau, the executive director of the DNC, was on this panel with us. It was really eye opening. And everybody echoed what you were talking about to a certain degree. And I went a little different. Now I think I want to go a little bit different here and talk about, it's not that we don't show up and talk to those people, in my opinion, about these things. I don't think they ever hear the message when we do. And that's because of how we run a modern campaign today. And Donald Trump did a really good job at going out and targeting infrequent voters. Do we do some of that targeting? Sure, but we over target everything that we do. And we quit having simple conversations with folks around what make their lives better and think about all these auxiliary things around their lives that we all care about: the environment, gay people, trans people, the weather, like all this shit I care about. But every day, the two things I care about is making sure my family's fed and that they're protected. But you don't see Democrats talking about that in that way. And part of that stuck.
Yeah. No, exactly. I'm agreeing with you. Not in that way. We do it with digital ads instead of what, Chuck, you know this. In my district, I'm not 75,000 doors. I went out and talked to people. More importantly, I listened to people and I earned their votes. There's no way in hell I should have moved this district 10 points. And I did. That was with Republicans and independents.
Yeah, but I would argue you were driving a lot of that strategy yourself, because I know you and I knew your campaign. So you were demanding certain things be done. That's not the way a modern campaign is run today in a top tiered congressional. You listen to a small group of consultants who are well meaning, and they don't mean no ill will, none of these people. And they're good Democrats. Some of them have been in my home, but they can't relate to a rural voter in East Texas. They can't relate to a farm worker in the Central Valley of California. They don't understand what an urban voter in the suburbs of Atlanta, a black couple, is having to go through, because they're all a bunch of well-intentioned woke white people who have master's degrees. And again, that don't make them bad people. It don't make them bad consultants. But there are certain places where we have only fed around the edges of what we actually do, where we haven't really changed the construct of the way that we run campaigns. And because of that, you see this slippage of a vote that's become more transient, and it moves around more because it's just looking for a solution, because it's yearning to fix a problem that it feels of a rigged system, of nobody cares and nobody's listening. My mom and daddy have been Democrats, and they're saying I should be. I don't know why I should be, because nobody's talked to me about why I have. I have heard from the other party that Donald Trump is bad or that the Republicans are bad. And I kind of get some of that. It does seem crazy sometimes, but at least they're outside the system talking to me about making America great again, stopping investing in foreign wars, draining the system and draining the swamps of people who think they're better than me, even though they don't mean it. Even verbiage around taxes on tips or taxes on overtime, which they don't go the next step of saying it's only a 2-year program. It's got small caps, and that's just putting a little bit of sugar on the end of a shit sandwich so that you won't realize the rest of that shit sandwich is Medicaid cuts. But we should be that smart to do the same thing. But sometimes we're holier than thou. We clutch our pearls and we're like, oh my God, we could never do that. And I'm like, well, fuck, you got to win an election before you can start making change.
That's it. You got to win the elections. And I talk about this in one of my other newsletters as well. What's going on in the party? I know some people are going to disagree with me, especially with what's going on in Texas right now. I think we got to fight fire with fire sometimes, but we got to still do the simple things, like getting out and talking to people, not just running digital campaigns, but getting out, listening to people, telling them what we're going to do, talking about things that really and truly matter to them. Yes, I live in a rural area. You got to talk to those people, and not just, again, a few weeks before an election. You got to have meaningful conversations. You got to elect leadership that looks like them, that sounds like them, and whether that's in Black communities, Latino communities. Let's face it, we've got an aging party here. And I run a PAC called Hold the Line, which is about electing the next generation of Democratic leaderships that looks like us across the country, no matter where you are. It's got to look like us. And it's got to feel like they're fighting for the same things that are important to us. And that's what I see as one of the big issues that we're having right now. But while we're facing fascism in this country, like we could lose it all if we don't wake up, fight back, do the right thing, but fight in a way, we're not going to out moralize the Republican Party right now. We're not going to out high ground them. It's not what people are focused on. They are, again, like you said, focused on putting food on the table, keeping a roof over our head, making sure that the kids can have a better future than we had. That's what people really and truly focused on. Let's talk about that as a party.
And let's not be scared to talk to folks in cowboy hats in rural America. And what I mean by that is there's a lot more that we have in common, but we really focus on what drives us apart. And Donald Trump and the Republican Party have gotten really good at that, of driving wedges between us by making us think that immigrants are our problem, driving a wedge between us thinking that 15 trans athletes are the reason that I can't make my mortgage this week. Like, they want to find a way to drive a wedge between the commonality of how we just all want to live our lives and our best lives and provide for our family, protect our family, and maybe go on vacation once a year, maybe buy a new pickup truck every 5 years, like basic shit that Democrats have to get back to talking to. But no matter if you have new candidates, old candidates, young candidates, what I find is that politics has become this global business. And so you have these giant firms who continue to run the same races the same way with the same verbiage, with the same posters, and you don't really get any new thoughts and any new ideas. There hasn't been a new Black or Latino consulting firm started in D.C. in 15 years, minus a few of them that's coming out of a couple of presidential White Houses. And what I mean by that is that it's an insular system to where there's no new ideas. That's why folks push back on David Hogg so much, or other folks like him. When they talk about generational change, the candidates may change, but the consultants don't, and the way that we run campaigns don't. And if you notice, we still run lots of ads around abortion, around democracy, and around all this stuff that is important and very important to lots of people.
Yes.
But we should root things that we do and where folks are and look for the commonalities. And just because somebody lives in rural America and drives a tractor and has an American flag on their house, you would automatically drive by as a Democrat and go racist, Trump voter, blah, blah, blah. When that person probably agrees with you on probably 80% of shit. Why don't we go there and have that conversation based around some economic populism and talk about aspirational things about this country used to be when we all knew we could achieve the American dream? I've done that through my business. Marcus, you've done that through the U.S. Army and your military service.
Yep.
This is the conversation I see lacking. Do you agree?
Oh, I agree 100%, Chuck. And it's something that I write about. It's listening without presuming. Like you said, just because this person has an American flag on their house, or they drive a tractor, or they wear a hat like you and me, listen to that person without presuming. Meet them where they are. That was a staple of my campaign. Meet people where they are. Listen and have those tough conversations. Don't be afraid to have those conversations. Yes, they may say something that you vehemently disagree with. But as you said, we're going to agree on 80%, if not more, of what's going on in this country. We're going to agree. There are a few hot button issues. I've turned so many single issue voters around, and I'm talking about from the Republican Party, people who maybe turned off from Green, but they didn't know about a Democrat. You shouldn't listen to that person. Listen to what it is that they're focused on. And you'll find, yeah, they're worried about rural hospitals. So they're worried about healthcare. They're worried about the economy. Same things that we're worried about. And you start from there. And you'll find more times than not, just by listening and talking about what you want to do to fix the problem, what we can do together to fix the problem, you'll turn a lot of those people. And I think that's what we need to get back to as a party.
And I think you're right. And as I listen and deal with candidates around the country, we have our position normally as consultants and I see these DC consultants doing this, is like we want to do no harm. And we're super cautious. We want to take our candidates and we want to bubble wrap them. We make sure they only do certain shows. We can have the Joe Rogan argument on whether who should go on that show or not go on that show. But you should be out there. The media markets have changed. The internet has changed. But again, the same group of folks running the same kind of campaigns. You can't bubble wrap your candidate. People are looking for authenticity. I honestly believe, and I'll put these words in your mouth, that way you don't have to put them in your own, is that you were very different. That's how you move a district 10 points against Marjorie Taylor Greene, is you were authentic. And it's not a black man in a cowboy hat. It's you being Georgia. That could have been anything. It could have been a baseball cap. It could have been whatever. You could have had purple hair, whatever it is. People saw you as something that was authentic to them. And when you, and this is a warning to some of you Democrats out there and your consultants and your strategists, people now are yearning to try to find a way to be in this bromosphere, to be in this, like, to be manly and to do all these things. And you can tell when folks are trying to force that. Take it from a 30-year Army vet that I have the privilege of talking to, or somebody who grew up on a working farm who still has calluses on his hands still today because I'm used to working with my hands. Now, when you advise your candidate to grow out their beard so it's got a little scruff on it and to start rolling up their shirt sleeves and cussing a little more on interviews, I can tell from that politician, because I have consulted to them, that they're forcing that to happen. And it looks inauthentic. You can be a manly's man without being a sexist asshole, with a beard, without a beard, with a cowboy hat, without a cowboy hat. Just be you. When I was working for Ruben Gallego, who is a Marine and saw more combat than in almost any company over there, he wrote a book about it, saw a lot of bad shit. The consultants around him that we had hired wanted to change who he was. Now, he was rough around the edges like all of us are, and you got to soften up the roughs. You know, we'll cut down on the cussing on social media and all the things, but you got to be you. And that's what I think folks in the party are missing, is that this authenticity piece. And you can say that, well, Trump is, he's crazy, stupid. He's all of those things. And he is crazy, and he can be stupid, and he's hired a bunch of idiots. But folks know that. And they know that that's authentic, and he don't give a shit about what he's saying. And to us, overeducated Democrats, that's preposterous, if I'm using that word right. And we, again, clutch our pearls and be like, we're better than that. We're not going to do that. Just like we're not going to redistrict or gerrymander districts. We're not going to stoop to their level. Again, we've got to fight fire with fire. We have to win elections before we can pass public policy that helps people. And then when we do, a la Joe Biden, that really helps people, we don't talk about it in a way where people understand or actually pass things that are helping them immediately. We're passing things that may help them 10 years down the road that they have no fucking clue is going to help them with whatever infrastructure is supposed to be. I just know my road is broke right now. I know we need a new bridge and I hope it's fixed, but that don't help me pay my bills right now.
Absolutely.
I got to pick up my kids at daycare. Who's going to pay for that? It's almost worth my wife not working, or my husband, to just not have to pay the daycare that costs so much. These are real life messages that you don't see Democrats running in campaigns, that we have to get back to win back working class people, no matter the color of their skin, right?
That's it. That's it. And that's one of the things I talk with Democrats about all the time is, and I bring it back to, being in the military and having spent a decade in combat zones. You have to fight the battle that you are in. Not the battle that you wanted, but the battle that you wish you could be fighting, or the battle that you thought you were going to fight, but the battle that you were in. That's why I talk about fighting fire with fire. I mean, you can't be playing Texas Hold'em when the opponents are playing chess. I don't care how many cards you're holding. Part of what I'm talking about when I say we're not going to out moralize or out high ground these guys. We're not going to do it. We got to fight back. And part of that fighting back is doing something that they've been doing for years. Sitting down, listening to what people are truly saying that concerns them. All those things that you just mentioned. These are people's everyday struggles. Healthcare, childcare, the economy. I'm just looking at yesterday what I spent at Walmart on groceries. It is ridiculous. Yeah, but you don't hear Democrats talking about, oh, what about the price of eggs now? What about the price of gas now? We're still talking about the things that we're talking about prior to November 2024. We're still talking
So,
about those same things. And we've got to move on past that and talk about real issues, get back to that. I mean, we got some winners here that we can be talking about and move people. So let's do that.
so I'm gonna give you and give folks out there because I think a lot of times on these Substacks and others, there's a lot of gloom and doom, and me and Marcus can bring that. But let's talk about ideas of how to create change. I like to tell my team, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. So
That's it.
I'm going to give you some things that we could be doing differently for all of you watching and who will be watching to take back with you. And then I want Marcus to give me and tell me things that they did strategically in his campaign that would move a Marjorie Taylor Greene congressional district where he ran 10 points more Democrat when he ran. Now, there are three major things if you want to win back men into the Democratic Party that I feel like you have to do. And number one is start earlier communicating with these men. And this means buying advertising on sporting events, gaming consoles, YouTube, streaming apparatus of where young men and men are consuming information. And let me tell you this, that Democratic, independent, middle of the road Republicans aren't watching the same thing on their streaming devices that their wives are sometimes. So when you do this, starting it earlier, break out your buying strategies to separate men and women. You would be shocked to learn that in the media buying that I do, very, very rarely do we separate what men and women because we think and assume they're watching the same thing. And let's be clear.
Right.
When I plop down on the couch next to my wife, there is somewhat of an argument or a discussion on what we're going to watch, and we're going to watch the same thing. I get that. But that's only a couple hours every evening. When we're watching things separately, she's watching the Kardashians and I'm watching a fishing show. That just is just two illustrations of consuming things. So start earlier, not just the last 4 weeks, not the last 6 weeks. I would argue not even the last 6 months. But Donald Trump right now, if I watch and listen to a black podcast, I'm hearing a Donald Trump ad after that podcast. Why aren't we there? So starting earlier, that's number one. And then the last two are for the second piece, expand your target list. And what I mean by that is when you go into a congressional race and figure out who you're going to communicate with, your DC consultant will say, we're not going to talk to everybody because that would be a waste of money. So let's take out all the Republicans who we know vote Republican and all the Democrats who vote Democrats based off of an algorithm in a modeled universe. This is where you get it wrong. That takes a lot of us out of that universe when you overlay it. Stay with me, nerds. A turnout model. So we're only talking to quote unquote marginal prime voters who may vote in every election and swing back and forth instead of all of these young men who are coming of age, who have a sporadic voting record, if they have any at all. And we never talk to them because they fall outside of this modeling parameter. So expand that modeled universe and talk to more people. And then the third and final thing before I kick it over to Marcus for his wisdom is cultural competency. When I talk about cultural competency, sometimes folks say it's in the Latino space, it's using Mexican Spanish in Arizona, it's using Cuban Spanish in Miami, and it's using Puerto Rican Spanish in New Jersey. It's just that's a little cultural competency. But it's also cultural competency to understand what a tractor means in the South, what it means about baling hay, what it means about crop season and turning over a field, what it means about combat. If you're Army, is there a difference between Army and Marines? Oh my God, don't get me started if you start talking to military guys about the different armed services. All of this is cultural competency of understanding that when you deliver that message, that you don't fuck it up by sending an Army guy or some other, there's let's say there's a Marine base in Quantico or some other thing, and you send them a bunch of Air Force ads with Air Force planes. Like these are things that you can screw that up. Have cultural competency about black people, brown people, Army people, country people, and have folks around you who can inform those artistic things that you're delivering that to. If you've got a bunch, again, well-intentioned, woke, white consultants who are, again, good people, but have never served in the military, who've never worked with their hand, and they've really never been a part of like growing up on a farm, they're relying off of
The culture.
right. They were over reliant on polling and focus groups, which it gets it close, but we're losing because we're just getting close. Would you like to add to the strategy conversation?
I'm going to
Mr.
touch on number two that you had there just a little bit. One of the things that I don't want to say fight with my consultants about, but they got a significant amount of pushback from me on is about who I was talking to in a primary versus a general election. I personally didn't care because I would talk to anybody and everybody. And what I would get back from them is, well, these aren't people who typically vote in primaries, or here are the people that are most likely, going to vote for you in a primary. So how do you ever expand on the numbers if you're not talking to everybody? I mean, I could see a person out as I'm walking through a neighborhood, and they might even have a Trump flag in their yard, but they're out. I'm going to talk to them. Hey, let's have a conversation. That's not always the preferred thing to do, but I knocked on a lot of doors that, as a consultant, that it's all strategic and targeted, which doors you're going to knock and things like that. No, let's knock on all of these doors. Let's talk to these people. And I would find more times than not that I could pull a lot of those people my way. That's how we move the needle, by going after people we don't normally go to. Now, getting to my list of things, which our list is going to have some overlap. Number one thing for me, show up, listen being the most important thing there, and learn from people, learn about what it is important to them. Speak to people's real life struggles is number two, not just their identity, speak to their struggles. Struggles in the Black community and the Latino community may be a little bit different, but at the base level, they're basically the same. So we got to speak to people's real life struggles. And then three, listen without presuming. You can't presume we know everything. You can't presume we know what's going to move people without first listening to them. Four, and this one's crazy, fix what's broken in blue cities and blue states. And that's, a lot of minority voters are concerned about crime and the high cost of living in cities. Are we addressing that as Democrats? Have we? When we were last in power, what did we focus most on? Not the issues that people were really talking about. That's why we lost this last election. And then five, you may disagree with me on this, but elevate new, younger, and diverse leaders that reflect the future of the party. Those are the things that are important to me. That's what I've been working on these last couple of years.
Well, that's awesome. Before we get to the lightning round, I really appreciate Marcus being on today and folks tuning into the Rocha Revolution. We're going to do this as much as we can. The end of the program, I like to do things a little bit more lighter since we've been bitching and complaining about the Democratic Party and reaching folks. And we're going to touch on this idea of presumption. That's me thinking I know Marcus because he's Black, or maybe I know him because he wears a cowboy hat, or maybe I know him because now I know he spent 30 years in the Army. And again, he has no idea what I've been asking him, so he's nervous. So there's the last couple questions are, the first one would be music. I'm always astonished about what people grew up listening to, what they're currently listening to, and what's the music that they enjoy. And it could be all of the same, right? And I think me and you bring so many different caricatures to what people would think we listen to. So now turn our audience on to what you actually like to listen to as it comes to things that make you feel good around the music.
So people are going to have gotten it completely wrong. Yes, I do listen to a little bit of country, but not as much as you would think. I mean, I'm a product of the '90s, so I grew up with '90s R&B, '90s hip hop, alternative, grunge. I listened to all that stuff that they played on MTV, and I still listen to it today. My
Oh,
'90s
damn.
playlist is still the highest thing on my playlist. So all of those, you name them. Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Jay-Z, Biggie, Tupac, SWV, things like that. And I listen to all kinds of music. I mean, I just went to a Coldplay concert a couple of weeks ago in Nashville.
Were you holding your mistress?
I had my kids there with me, so you'll see them all over. It was the highlight of their summer, I guess. We went to a Coldplay concert, but yeah, I listen to Coldplay as well. I mean, most popular stuff I listen to, but it's '90s for me, man. That's the era I came up with. I listen to a little '70s, '80s stuff, but yeah, that's
Nice. I listen.
man
I
of a
grew up.
certain age.
Right. I'm a few years older than you are, so I grew up listening to old country music, like old country music.
I listen to a
And
little Waylon Jennings too.
right.
That's crazy, but yeah.
I love Waylon and Willie and the Highwaymen, and then got, my mama really got me on old black music. What I call old black music is like Otis Redding, Fats Domino, that kind of stuff. Al Green, Lin, yeah. Uh, and then as a '70s hit, I loved Linda Ronstadt and the Eagles. But I graduated high school in '87, so some of that '90s stuff, kind of got. But I was more of a '70s and '80s kid. I noticed behind you that is my favorite movie, which is Tombstone.
Mine too. One of my favorite. My favorite movie is Heat, but Tombstone is right up there in the top 5.
Nice. So the last question, now that we know about you liking Tombstone and Heat and the music, is what is your go-to favorite food or meal?
Man, I'm a simple man. Steak, potatoes, broccoli. That's my go.
Steak, potatoes, broccoli. And
Steak, potato, mashed potato, doesn't matter.
you need a starch and a potato. You'd like my grandmother, because she had a piece of meat for every meal and some kind of local vegetable that she grew and some kind of bread at every meal.
Snap peas for us. My granddaddy was a snap pea farmer. Spent a lot of time out on the farm. Chicken, snap peas, and whatever else. So
we had purple hull peas. We grew purple hull and cream peas. We grew sweet yellow tomatoes. Y'all would call them Vidalias in Georgia, but we had the same soil because it's East Texas, and we grew these big sweet onions. So my granddaddy, I grew up on this farm. We'd have like fried pork chops and a potato and a vegetable. But my granddaddy would cut fresh onion and have it with every meal, normally with some kind of a pepper. So he'd eat a bite of onion, and then he'd eat a bite of meat, and like that was his thing. And he'd move it, work it, because I was in awe of him. My daddy left when I was really young, and this old guy raised me. He only had a 3rd grade education. I sound a lot like him when I talk. And I think that those memories make me a better political consultant. When we talk about cultural competency and the impact that Marcus had on his own campaign, is having those experiences that, again, are just different experiences than a normal Democratic political consultant, makes you better at communicating with regular folks. I think we have a lot of well-intentioned folks who are running campaigns. They've just been, what I like to say is, they've been so removed from the pain that, they've forgotten a little bit about what that pain feels like, not in any kind of auspicious way or bad way. It's just that I personally remember what it was like the day my truck got repoed. I remember specifically what it felt like the day when I had to go to a payday lender to get $40 for diapers for my kid to make it till Friday, because I needed diapers, but I was out of money, and that $40 I had to pay back $80. Like, these are the things when I'm writing an ad that I think makes me a better consultant. I think would make us a better party if we had more folks running like Marcus, more consultants like me, and folks doing this piece. Marcus, on the way out, last question would be, what today's inspiring you? What today are you seeing that in a day when Donald Trump and Republicans have control of our entire federal government, and folks are really despondent? What are things that give you hope?
Well, I'm going to take it to Texas, and the place where you're from, a place where I've lived in North Texas, in Dallas area, but northeast of Dallas. So I'm very familiar with East Texas as well. The way the Democrats in Texas are pushing back, doing whatever they can. I mean, they're risking it all. So that inspires me. People like Jasmine Crockett, who were out there being, I won't say outspoken, but she's being authentic. She's someone that people can relate to. And I love it. Those are things that inspire me to see where this party can go to. And I think, we need to take a page from their books more. So these are the things that inspire me right now, what's going on. But hey, all's not lost. I mean, we do talk doom and gloom right now, but all's not lost. We have a chance here to do something very special in this midterm and save democracy. I see it those are the states. I see it no less than that. So I'm inspired by Texas Democrats and the way they're pushing back, and I say we should see more of that.
That's awesome. I just got back from Netroots Nation, watching a whole convention full of folks, fighting for what they believe in, the new generation, some of the old generation of online activists inspires me. They still want to hear my thoughts, inspires me. And what inspires me is all of you subscribe to the Rocha Revolution. And if you would share mine and then share Marcus's Substack with your friends as well, that we would be appreciated. We're not starting some new Substack, which is two boys in a cowboy hat. So thank you for tuning in. And until next week, it could work. Y'all be good. And me and Marcus will see you soon.
All right, people. Have a good one.
Y'all take care.